Hello, welcome to Restorative Flow class tonight. I hope you've had a good day so far. Um, yeah, it's a Restorative Flow class, so I want you to make sure that you have some blankets nearby, several, maybe 3 or 4 that you can fold up easily. Make sure that if you have a bolster, definitely have that by, and even a block if you need, not if you need it, but I would bring it by if you have it. It's nice to have those things kind of surrounding the mat. One for effectiveness, and because as we transition out of some of these poses, you might want to use the prop, or as we transition into, you might want to use the prop. But there's a secondary benefit of being surrounded by comfort. So if you have pillows and soft cushions and these things that are utilized to make your know that it's about you're going to relax, it can kind of prepare you into the restorative class without even actually doing any of the movements. Kind of like when you lay down in bed, you kind of start becoming tired because the bed lulls a bit of that sensation out of you. So if you don't have all that stuff, make sure you go get it because it'd be nice to use. um, for tonight's class, we're going to focus on hip mobility primarily, which really focuses a lot on the pelvis and the back and the torso. How we move the pelvis kind of negotiates how the hips move, and how we move the back and the torso as well. So we kind of have to touch all those bases. The primary pose that we'll be holding for quite some time is half pigeon. We'll be holding it on both sides. If half pigeon is a bit much for you, and sometimes it is for us, even if we have all of the cushions, then it's important that you switch to laying figure 4. And I'll show you that transition as well when we come to that time, if that's better for you. Safety disclaimer, it's imperative that you listen to your body more than anything else. This is a guided practice, and my teaching are really suggestions. You know your body way better than I do. So if you feel like there's a better pose, or if you feel like you'd rather do something different with your arms or your legs, please do so, and please do so mindfully. Choose the adjustments that suit what you need at the moment, especially in a restorative class, because we're going to be holding these poses for several minutes. If any type of sharp pain shows up, any type of dull aching pain, any type of a zinging little, this is not that comfortable, you need to move out. Okay? There's a very big difference between moving into a space and opening up the space versus grabbing a space and trying to rip it open. Okay? If we're trying to rip it open, that's where problems show up. So please, please, please listen to your body. Choose a pose that works best. And if it's not the one that I'm suggesting, please choose a different one. Especially because I'm on the other side of a computer, so I can't really see what your body's doing. So make sure you do what feels best. Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. Let's come to a cross-legged seated position first. Let your hands go where they feel. If they want to be on the knees, face up, hands at prayer, wherever. And just close your eyes and come into your breath. And become articulate with it. So like you're noticing what is the sensation of the breath through the nose, through the throat, into the belly. What's the sensation on the way out? And when we say become articulate with it, what we're trying to kind of understand is how many words could you use to describe it? Is it a cooling sensation on the way in? Do you feel a sinking sensation as you breathe out? And today we're going to start with just the neck, and we're going to roll the head to the left, very slowly roll it forward, roll to the right, and back. Take your time doing this. Imagine that you're the most inquisitive and most curious explorer, leaving no stone unturned. As you make these big circles with the neck. Maybe the circle gets a little bit bigger as your head gets heavier. And I want you to relax your rib cage and your middle spine. And let your head get really heavy. And as you do this, if your rib cage is relaxed and your back is relaxed, can you feel your ribs making a little circle? Try not to direct it. Oftentimes, when we don't have the experience, we kind of try to force it. But what's happening here is that your spine is totally connected to your head. So when the head moves to one side, that force gets sent through the spine. And if the spine and muscles that surround it are nice and relaxed, you're going to feel the spine kind of bending and circling. Switch the direction of your circle. And now, as you do this, if your rib cage, you can sense that it's kind of tilting and turning and curling and swirling around. Oop, forgot my direction. Can you send that down even a bit further and try to relax your low back and relax your pelvis? So this isn't where you necessarily will feel your pelvis actually move, but you'll experience a bit of desired movement because all the muscles are so relaxed that you can feel that sensation go down all the way to the tailbone, really. This is kind of where craniosacral therapy really comes in. Okay, and then come back up. Keep the head on top, nice and stacked. Start the deepening your breath. And can you sense a little sensation that's down the spine now from that movement? Okay. So from here, we're going to just do a couple side stretches, a couple twists before we start getting into our bigger stuff. So just bring your left hand down, tent the fingers, and that's just a gentle anchor there. It's not meant to be weight inducing. Inhale, reach the right palm up. Exhale, reach over. Inhale, reach up. And reach over. Inhale up. And last one, reach. Go as far as you feel comfortable to go. Stay there for a few breaths. If you sense your right knee is lifted, relax the right thigh. Doesn't need to come into play. Then inhale, reach up and switch sides. So right hand comes down nice and slow. Feel the blood rush into the arm. Left hand up. And on exhale, reach over. Inhale up. Exhale, reach over. Inhale up. And last time, reach to your fuller expression. Pause there. Good. Inhale, reach both palms up this time. And exhale the hands into a prayer position. Take 3 or 4 breaths here and set an intention if you feel like you need one tonight. And if you don't have an intention, just breathe and feel your body. Good. Just take your hands down to your knees. Okay, so before we go into half pigeon, we want to do a couple movements on our back. And I'm going to show you laying figure four as well, just so you know what that is before we get into the half pigeon. So go ahead and remove your block or blankets or whatever you might have been sitting on. Just move it to the side, keep it available. Lean on your or lay on your back in constructive rest. So both feet are about hip width distance, heels and toes pointing forward. Both thighs are parallel. And make sure that your heels are close enough that you can feel the foot have a decent ground. Palms by the side. So the movement that we need to really pat or get down is the arch and flatten. Okay? So we're just going to do the arch first. Before we move, locate your low back muscles. So sense the distance between the low back and the floor. Try to articulate it. Could you guess how far it is from the center of the low back to the floor? Is the space an inch, 2 inches, a few millimeters? Maybe it's nothing and you have a pretty flat spine. Do you sense that you're leaning left or right in the pelvis? And now that you know where that area is, you're going to flex that area on an inhale. Hold it there. You can exhale, stay there, but just keep in this position where your low back is nice and strong. Your abs should be very relaxed. And feel that your pelvis is tilting towards the top of the mat. It's tilting away from you. And then on an exhale, just release that low back flexion very slowly and pause when it's done releasing. So you're not flattening here. You just release the muscle only. So chances are there's still a little bit of space between the low back and the mat. And then from there, we're going to flatten our spine. So flattening the spine to the mat is a deep abdominal movement. Okay, and it's a light flexing. Has nothing to do with your low back though. The low back is not doing anything. It is pressing into the floor, but we're not using the muscles back there. So just inhale where you are. Exhale, engage your abs a bit and tilt your pelvis like it's trying to go towards your belly button. And you'll feel this flattening on the floor. Stay there for just a moment to experience a flat spine, but an engaged ab, an engaged stomach, and feel the pelvis is tilted in. So now we're going to do both of those movements together. Inhale is an arch, you flex the low back, pelvis tilts away. Exhale is a releasing, and once the low back is done releasing, the abs engage, and you flatten the spine to the mat. And then you release the abs on the inhale. Eventually you turn on the back. Exhale, release the back. And then you turn on the abs and flatten. Keep doing that a few times. And articulate that buzzword, the difference or the moment between one turning on and one turning off. So as we come up on the inhale, the abs have to release, and then once the abs release, then the back turns on. And on the exhale, the back fully releases, and at the moment it fully turns off, then the abs turn on. So there's like a slight, tiny, momentary difference where they shift between the two. It's a fluid movement, arching and flattening, but there is a split hair of a time between when you're telling your muscles to engage and when your muscles to relax. Do a couple more of these. And understand that your pelvis is tilting, so send your Awareness to your pelvis tilting in towards the belly as you exhale, tilting away from you as you inhale. So we really want to understand this movement because we're going to do it in half pigeon. It's going to help us really get into the pose in a much deeper manner. Okay, finish the arch and flatten you're on and just pause and relax. And notice here if your low back is already a bit closer to the mat. Okay, so before we go into half pigeon, laying figure 4 does a very similar thing. We're just using gravity in a more comfortable way than a pressing way. And in laying figure 4, all you do is you pick up your right foot and you put the right ankle on top of the left thigh. So let's all do this together. And now we're in laying figure 4. If you're having a major experience here or you're getting a lot of feedback, if it's painful, you need to come out. But if it's not painful, you stay here. Or if you would like to stay in a laying posture on your back, you could, but still go deeper. You can also hold your left shin. Okay, but we're still going to do the arch and flatten in laying figure 4 or half pigeon. So go ahead and try the arch and flatten here. Inhale, arch the low back. Exhale, flatten. Let's do that a couple times. As you do this, I really want you to try to focus on relaxing your internal and external hips. So that can be hard to focus on, but maybe it's a relaxation of the thighs. That's a bit easier. Okay. So that's laying figure 4. You stay right here. We're going to be in this posture about 5 or 6 minutes on both sides. If you'd like to come into half pigeon, it's a much deeper opening position. But you slowly and lazily come back up. You're going to bring your right shin in front, right knee out to the right side, left leg back. Oh, I'm already snapping and popping. So the knee, the back leg can have a bit much with the knee. So this is where a lovely wool blanket or something cushiony can go right underneath the knee. Okay. Now, before you come down, get all your bells and whistles in place. So I have a pillow in front of me. I also have a block to my right that I might use. This is because as we come down, it's not usually beneficial to bring your head all the way down, even if you're the most experienced yogi. I'm almost willing to promise you that you're coming out of the pose a bit if you come too far front forward. So before you come down, check out your right hip. Feel the space between the hip and the floor. Check out the inside of your left hip. Feel the space between the hip and the floor. Those ideally are kind of equal, and they're both wanting to come down first. So the weight should be coming down here in the hips and the pelvis. If we come forward too much, a lot more weight comes forward, and then the experience really changes. So set it up. If you need a cushion underneath your right hip or a block or anything to just bring it underneath to help know that it's there, it can even be just a tiny little raise up. Put it there now. Or start to come down. Take your time. Before you bring your head down, where's your right knee? Where's your leg? And pause here. And I want you to try to do a couple of arch and flattens in this position. So first think about it. Where is my low back? Where's my pelvis? And then arch the low back. It can be quite difficult. And then exhale, release the low back, flatten. Do this a few times. And notice how the experience changes in the body. Notice that other parts really want to start flexing, especially the thighs, the knees a bit. So I want you to go ahead and arch as far as you feel comfortable. Flex the low back. You're tilting your pelvis away from you, remember. And chances are you feel a lot more weight in the right hip and in the right thigh, all that area. If you're in a half pigeon. If you're laying figure four, it's a bit different. Now go ahead and release the low back, and I want you to try to flatten your low back by engaging your abs. Tilt your pelvis in. Notice that now you're probably going to feel a stretch in the left thigh. So I want you to do this a few times. Arch and flatten a couple more times, just like you're tilting your pelvis in and out. And then find a moment of neutrality where the arch is not happening nor the flattening. So it may not be your normal. So neutral does not mean normal. Oftentimes normal means flexed. So normal is just whatever your behavioral pattern is for you. Neutral means you're finding that space of comfort where you can really sense what's flexed, sense what's not flexed, and you want to try to find that space where as little flexing is happening. So you want a nice long spine. And then you're going to bring your head down. And if you feel like you could come all the way down to the floor, go right ahead. I'm going to rest my forehead on this cushion here. And while you're in this position, I want you to track your breath. And maybe that first means that you have to come into awareness because maybe the breath has left. It never really leaves, but it often becomes quite shallow. Remember, it's a gentle, fluid breath that's just a little bit more than normal, a little bit exhale more than normal. But if a big panic is showing up for you in this position, then maybe it's just about breathing and just feeling the breath move in and out. If the breath is pretty relaxed, allow that inhale expansion to kind of echo throughout the torso and into the arms and legs and wherever it can go. And what that means is that wherever you can experience it. So it can be a very tactile experience first, where when you inhale, you feel your belly extend. Maybe it touches the leg, maybe it touches the mat. And when you exhale, you feel the belly lift a bit. Maybe it's you can feel your shoulders extending up towards your ears in the slightest manner whenever you inhale. You feel them subtly release on the exhale. Hopefully you feel this definitely in the right hip. Maybe you feel the breath in the left thigh. Okay, we've been here for about 3 minutes, so we have a couple more minutes. Remember, in these restorative yin poses, that when you come out, you're coming to a place of just pure comfort where you can experience the echoes and the yin state of the pose. So you want to avoid any sudden movements. It's a very slow coming out of the posture. And you're choosing whatever pose feels good. And you let the experience wash over. right, very slowly, we're going to transition out of this pose. So palms come to the mat. If you're in laying figure 4, you can just come to a constructive rest. Bring your palms up, chest lift, and then just slowly lean over to the right hip or any other way you want to come out. And then bring the left leg, and you can come to a cross-legged seated position. Doesn't have to be towards the front or anything like that. And wherever you find a place of rest, pause and breathe. Okay, so before we transition to the other side, there's going to be a nice little move we do here. So I want you to take your left knee and bring it to your right foot. So this can be a little tricky for some of us. So how this works is my right shin is a bit forward, my right knee is out, my left knee is towards my right foot, my right hand comes behind me, okay? Engage your core just a little bit, and you're gonna inhale, push your right hand into the mat, feel that lifting sensation, the hips come up, and you reach the left hand up and slightly back. So you should feel this again in the left thigh. Engage the right thigh and the right hip and try to bring the right hip further up. Good. Release down. Take your time. Stay right here in this position. Just take your right hand to your left chest. Bring the left hand behind you now. And just twist your rib cage left and right. Just a gentle twisting. Good. And then try to sit the left hip down a little bit just to see if you can get both pelvis and hip on the floor. If that's not available to you, you can keep the left hip up a bit. And then come to a cross-legged seated position first before we switch to the other side. Take a couple breaths there. And then we're in transition to the left. So if you prefer laying figure 4, you just lay back down and switch the legs. If you want to come into half pigeon, take your time, set it up. This time left shin is forward, right leg is back. You can bring a blanket underneath the right knee. Take your time, especially in a half pigeon. There is absolutely no rush to get into this posture because it's highly one of those postures that's done in a rush. And even sometimes when we come down, we don't know if we're in the right way, and it takes a few breaths to understand. But remember, you can have a block or a pillow or something underneath the left thigh or a hip. And it's just at the point where you feel it almost resting. So my block here, it's just kind of barely holding up my left thigh. And what that's for is I don't want it too far forward. Well, I do. If you want complete support towards the left hip is not going to be able to come down, then you push the block in. But ideally, you want the block a little bit away to allow a little bit of hip coming down movement, but you know the block is there so you feel secure. Then you come down and see where you are. Make sure that you didn't become top heavy. And remember, top heavy is the kind of that idea where we'd roll forward And oftentimes you roll to the right or to the left. You want both hips coming down in equal weight from inner left to inner right. And then choose what you want to do with your head. I do recommend a pillow or a blanket. If you're in laying figure 4, you can make any adjustment there. If you want to go deeper, you just pick up the knee with your interlaced fingers around the shin. And if you're in half pigeon, actually, and laying figure 4, let's do a few of those arch and flatten. So inhale, arch the low back. Exhale, curl in with the abs. Inhale, arch. Exhale, curl in. Now you might notice that this is much more difficult or much easier. For me, this side is way harder. And my arch and flatten doesn't feel like much movement is happening. And there's a reason for this, and there's a reason we're doing this. The reason is that the hips, the psoas, the little connecting muscles that run from the spine to the pelvis down to the hip and control the movement of the legs can get very tight and limit pelvic movement. And by doing this, we're kind of opening up that area, those internal hip rotators, gaining a little bit of control over them, inducing a little bit of movement. And then we're also finding the place of neutrality, so go and seek that out, where neither the back is turned on nor the abs. And then rest. And as I said before, there's no sacredness here in the sense that you have to be in a certain way or you have to be perfectly still. I've heard many times in yoga classes if you have an itch, try not itching it. And if you, if you're thirsty, don't drink some water in a Bikram class. I'm here to say that's nonsense. It is a nice exercise to see if you can avoid the temptations of the body. So if you have an itch, it can be a nice exercise to detach yourself and try to not itch it. But I don't think any big lessons are there. The real work is much more internal, much deeper, and more of an unpacking process. And if you would like a little assistance in switching something or moving something, then by all means feel empowered to do so. Keep your breath. We're about a couple minutes in. If thoughts begin to invade, just let them live. Let them say their piece and then let them leave. Track your breath. See how far you can feel it open. If you find a place of resistance, is it possible to relax? Or is it possible you need to adjust so you can relax? I know it can feel nice to rub your forehead left to right on the pillow or the block or the floor. We have about 1 more minute left. Okay, very slowly, mindfully come out of the pose. Take your time. Remove anything that needs to be removed. And then find maybe a seated position. Whew. Maybe a cross-legged is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to keep my left leg pretty much lazy. Whew. Pause here, take a few breaths, and just experience. Okay, and from here, I'm going to turn towards the camera, but you don't need to turn too much unless you need to see me. But we're doing the same thing. Left shin down, right knee coming towards the left foot, left palm back. And notice, is the right hip lifted off the floor? Can you sit it down? I cannot. Maybe you can. It's okay if the pelvis is lifted. Bring the left hand behind you and then very slowly engage the core, lift the hips up and forward and reach the right hand up and back. Now naturally you're going to feel the stretch along the right thigh. Try to engage the left side of the pelvis. Bring that forward as well as you reach a bit further forward, a bit further up and back slightly. It's a beautiful, lovely expansion pose. Feel the breath. And then very slowly come back down. Come to, or actually just stay here. Breathe. Maybe that right pelvis can come back down a little further if you make some adjustments. Good. Take the left hand, bring it to the right pec. Right hand comes behind you this time. And just turn your ribs to the right. Turn your ribs to the left. And when you come right, does it feel like you might be able to sit that right hip down just a little bit further? Okay, good. So from here, I just want you to come back to a cross-legged seated position. Okay. And you're going to place the right shin on top of the left. So you're trying to get them kind of in like a nice straight line. This can look different on everyone. If you put your right foot all the way on top of the left thigh, you can get a much deeper hip opening here. But you don't have to. You can just keep the shin on top of shin. They can be further apart. You can also have the right foot in front. That's okay as well. Choose something. We're not going to hold it for too long, this movement. This is just a nice little addition. Inhale, reach your palms up. Exhale, reach forward. Keep your butt on the ground. Bring the palms down. Let your head drop. Let your ribs drop. Let your forehead and everything chill out. Now, it doesn't matter where you've gone. If your palms need to hold you up, that's okay. If your forearms are on the ground, that's okay. But wherever you are, can you engage your core a little bit and try tilting your pelvis in? Good. And then from there, reach your palms further forward. Not as far as forward they can possibly go, because I want you, if your whole palm is compressed down, I want you to curl your abs in, tilt your pelvis in, and then push your body back. You should feel this stretch kind of in the upper trapezius. Let your head drop. Good. And keeping your palms on the mat, you're going to roll the chest up, head up. Like that. And then curl in, push back. So it's kind of like an arch and flatten. Inhale, arch the low back, rib cage comes up. Use your hands and pull yourself up. And exhale, push into the floor, push back. Couple more. Last one. And then slowly come up. Whew. So before we switch to the opposite side, we're going to try to come into Lord of the Fishes pose. It's a very grand name for a terrible hip opener. Yeah, it's a great hip opener, but it's pretty massive. So if this isn't available to you, we're going to have a way of doing it instead, okay? So what you want to try to do is get that right foot on top of the left thigh, okay? Then the left foot, or basically you're trying to get the right knee on top of the left knee. It's the best way to describe it. So for me, I lean over and I walk my left knee further that way, and then I roll back on top, okay? It's a tough one to get into. So my right hip is absolutely lifted here. That's completely okay. Yours might be up here. You might be even more like this. If you're leaning all the way over, your job is really try to just hold on to your leg and lean into the right pelvis to bring it down. If you're pretty much here, that's okay too. Wherever you go, what I want you to do is try to grab your left hand and hold the right knee. This is one way to do it. And bring your right hand behind you and twist. And as you twist, you also rib cage to the right, roll into the right pelvis a bit. We're only going to be here for a few minutes. You can roll back and forth if you want more of a dynamic movement, more of a functional hip opener. Or you can also just kind of roll forward. You can also take the elbow, hook it around, and twist all the way. Okay? But wherever you are, just try to hold on to the leg most likely. Good. Whew. So that was an external hip stretch, the outside of the right butt cheek. And very slowly take your time. Straighten both legs forward first. And then just move your toes or your feet forward and back. Roll on the hips. So you're flexing kind of the calves and the shins. And this really just helps kind of get some blood circulation, because sitting for a while can really get things a bit tight, stiffy. I don't know. Anyway, so now the right leg comes on the floor, left leg comes on top. You know where we're going. So if you want a bigger one and you have the mobility, you can bring your left heel on top of your right thigh. My left knee goes up decently, and it's a bit too much when I come forward. So I'd rather, for me, be here. It's up to you. You can also just bring the leg forward. You can be here if you want. It's really okay. So same thing as before, just inhale, reach up. Exhale, reach forward. You keep that butt on the ground. Palms down. And let yourself fall. Let your forearms drop. Let your head drop. But try to not let your booty come too far off the floor. Let the head drop. You should feel, or hopefully you feel, the weight of that brain pulling down the skull. So you're getting a nice stretch on the neck. Keep your breath. It's really going to help open up your back here. And then let's induce a bit of functional movement. So you grab both palms down to the floor. Place your fingers nice and wide. Bring the forearms up. You're not reaching as far forward as you can. You're a little bit back so you have a bit of traction and a bit of grip on the floor. Okay. Curl the abs in. Try to tilt the pelvis in as you push your body back and straighten the arms. So you're kind of pushing against the floor. Bring yourself back. Just stay here for a couple breaths. Abs engage, curling in, head drop. And then we're going to start our arch, and more like an arch and curl here. So you're going to inhale, release the abs, engage the back, bring the rib cage up, look up. It's kind of like a cat-cow movement as well. And on the exhale, you curl in, abs engage, chin to chest. And keep that movement. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Curl in. One more. And then slowly come back up. So we make ourselves into Lord of the Fishes on the opposite side. Maybe it's a statue or something that was in a weird twist. Why they call it Lord of the Fishes. Anyway, so the right knee comes in towards the center. Left leg tries to come wrap around on top. Move some things if you need to move them. So you're trying to get the left pelvis towards the floor. If it's up a bit, that's okay. Just make sure you position your legs, your hands in any way that's going to help you gently relax the left hip down. But you don't want to force it. You don't want too much weight falling down. Again, no pain, all gain. So you can take the right hand and wrap it around that left thigh, and you can bring the knee up. That can really give you some experiences as well. You can also choose to hook the elbow outside and go for the twist that way. Try it on. We're only going to be there for a few breaths. But wherever you go, find a safe space and then roll into the left hip a bit. And then twist your ribs trying to go towards the left. If the left hand can come behind you to anchor, do so. And if you feel like you can let go of that leg and hook the elbow to the outside edge to deepen the twist, go ahead. But try to move that left pelvis towards the ground while you're trying to push your knee towards the right. Excellent. Slowly unwind. Okay, so come to a cross-legged position. A lot happened with the hips here. We have, great. We have about 7 more minutes left of class, and I'd like to spend about 3 or 4 of them in, I forgot, frog pose. If you've done this before, you know what we're in for. If this is not available to you, please do any other hip opener that you prefer. So in frog pose, I'm going to bring, let's see, my blankets in front of me, just a little bit further. And you may need to lay long on the mat. And what you can do, so your knees are going to come apart. Okay. You can roll up the mat on either side, under the knees, to give you a bit of cushion. You can also put blankets under the knees as well. And how this is going to work is your knees are decently far apart to your feeling a bit. I could bring my knees further, but I don't need to go super far. Then your feet, the big toe side edge of the feet are trying to get to the mat, okay? And then take a look back at your feet. So the knee should be directly on top of the heel or close. The feet should look like they're flat, big toe side edge of the foot trying to come down, almost like your ankle's trying to touch. Take a look at the right one as well. And then take a look at the hip and the knee. So the thigh needs to be nice and straight. Good. Before you come down slowly. Maybe you just come to your forearms. Pause there. So here, you want to avoid arching the low back at first. So we're actually going to do the arch and curl here, and it's going to be a bit big. A lot might show up here. So please go slow. Please take your time. But in this position, you're going to inhale, arch the low back, so your pelvis is going to tilt away. Your internal hips might go, holy crap, here we are. And then on an exhale, I want you to release your low back, curl the abs in, pelvis comes forward, and then the hips, internal hips again might go, Jesus Christ. So keep going, arching your pelvis away from you, and then curling your pelvis in. Try to do 3 of those. Try to go slow, very fluid. You may even be feeling your external hips as well. Oh, yep. This is real hip mobility here. When you can control the movement of your pelvis even in deep stretches. Okay, now coming to a place of neutrality in the low back and then in the spine. So remember, that's not where the low back is arching nor where the abs are curling in, but a straight spine. And then if you can bring your head down, we're going to try to be here for just 1 minute. Just keep your breath. Your head can be on a pillow if you want. You can come out of the pose if you want. Okay, and we'll slowly move out of the pose. We're going to come into a child's pose first. So both palms onto the mat. Bring the chest up first or on the floor. Then bring the knees in just a little bit. So maybe a few inches, not all the way, unless you feel like you really need that. and then sit your hips back onto your heels and melt right back down into a child's pose. And the reason we kind of we get a bit rigid with coming out of this pose. Oftentimes when we come out of frog pose, we come so quickly and the hips can sting us a bit, and there's a panic and a rush. But with that type of movement, we really want to come into another pose that doesn't kind of force anything to realign itself. And then come up now. If you rolled up your mat, go and roll it back out. Bring the knees in. And then take your time coming into Shavasana on the mat. So you're just coming into corpse pose, laying on your back. And I would recommend actually putting the tiniest little pillow or blanket underneath your head. It's a very important reason for this. And it's comfort. If you feel like the blanket under your head is not worth it, just move it. But oftentimes the skull meeting the floor can be kind of heavy and can steal a lot of attention because of the sensory experience. But in Shavasana, I want you to just feel your pelvis, your hips. That whole area is probably still buzzing. And take the next minute or so and just realize how beautiful you can still breathe. How even though you're having a bodily experience, you still have this wonderful world of comfort that comes simply by virtue of breathing and letting go. Good. Take a few more breaths and just become really greedy with gravity. Let it press down, push everything out. Okay, from here, inhale, reach your palms up, exhale them behind you. Feel the rib cage move, feel it stretch. Maybe or move your wrists and flex your legs. Roll over to any side that you want in a laying fetal position. Take 3 breaths of appreciation. I like to take one for the ground for holding me up, one for myself for going through a practice, and then one for whatever's been kind of bothering me. And slowly make your way up to a cross-legged seated position. Take your time, be lazy with it. You can bring your hands to prayer if you want, but tonight I'm going to lay my hands on top of each other, palms both facing up. We'll end practice in one collective sigh. So just inhale through your nose. And inhale for a bow. Namaste. Great. Thank you very much for coming. Tonight's class was good. Yeah. So a couple notes about pelvis and hips, and something that's said oftentimes is that trauma is stored in the hips. Trauma is an entire system thing. So it's nowhere and everywhere. But sometimes when we go through a deep stretch that targets something that's quite tight, which are often our hips are, from the internals to the externals, to even the back, is all kind of in network together. But sometimes when we come into those deeper poses, a panic can show up because we start to freak out. How long am I here? Are my hips going to snap? And that panic is it's a system in the body designed to, for survival, if you take a biological psychology approach to it. But so oftentimes when that mechanism gets triggered, other things that mechanism has been triggered can come up as well. It's kind of like going into a familiar room in the house or going into the kitchen. Naturally, when you go into the kitchen, you might start thinking about something to eat, even though you went in to just get a glass of water, because that's what the kitchen does. It facilitates food. So sometimes when we go into a deep yoga posture and the traumatic system gets kind of triggered just a little bit in a comforting way so we can breathe through it. But sometimes when that happens, we go into that familiar room and we go, oh, there's my mom not loving me very much. And it can be beautiful if you're in that space and you know that you can breathe and that you're good and that you're purposely going in here to clean house. So to use an easier metaphor. So anyways, thank you very much for coming. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope you have a good rest of your day or evening. If you'd like to donate, that'd be wonderful. It helps support us and what we're doing. We have some more projects that are going to be starting on Monday. And if you can't donate, a great way to support us is just letting people know, and people specifically that you feel would benefit from this practice. That's it. Anyways, yeah, have a good night. Oh, don't move too quick. I already started and my body told me that was too fast.